English is a language full of strange phrases, expressions that we use every day, often without a second thought. But behind these phrases are stories, some of them centuries old, that reveal a lot about how our language and our world has changed. So today, let's explore 7 strange English phrases and where they come from. Let's start with something we all do every day, eating. A baker's dozen. If you've ever ordered a dozen donuts and ended up with 13, you've encountered this old tradition. But why 13? In medieval England, bakers were required by law to sell a full dozen loaves of bread. If they shortchanged their customers, they risked severe punishment, fines or worse. To be safe, bakers would add an extra loaf, making it 13. And that's why, even today, a baker's dozen means 13. Next up, riding shotgun. These days, it's what you say to make a claim on the front passenger seat of a car, but the phrase has its roots in the Old West of the United States. Stagecoaches were often prime targets for bandits, so to protect the passengers and cargo, a guard would sit next to the driver, armed with a shotgun. That position became known as riding shotgun. Today, it's not so much about defending against outlaws, and more about getting that extra legroom and the best view of the dual carriageway. Ever heard of the phrase, getting off scot-free? It means escaping without punishment, but it has nothing to do with Scotland or Scots. In medieval England, the Scot was a word for tax, similar to today's local modern taxes. If you managed to avoid paying it, you got away scot-free. Over time, the phrase evolved to mean getting away without the consequences, not just taxes. So the next time you wriggle out of a tricky situation, you'll know where that phrase comes from. Today, we use the phrase over the top to describe something excessive or outrageous, but in World War I, it had a much more dangerous and literal meaning. Soldiers would go over the top of the trench to advance on the enemy, a moment fraught with peril as they exposed themselves to enemy fire. It was an action that often required immense bravery, and the phrase has since come to mean anything that goes beyond what's normal or expected, thankfully with a much less chance of machine gun fire. Ever been asked if the cat's got your tongue? It's what someone might say if you're at a loss for words, but the origin is far more sinister. In the British Navy, they used a whip called the cat o' nine tails for flogging. The pain was so intense that it often left the punished sailors speechless for a long time. Over time, this grim reality turned into a casual question, though thankfully the original practice is long gone. From the speechless sailors of the British Navy to the hot-headed young men of the 19th century America, let's move on to another phrase with a curious origin. If someone has a chip on their shoulder, it means they're looking for a fight. But where does that come from? In the 19th century, young American men who wanted to start a fight would put a literal wooden chip on their shoulder, daring others to knock it off. If someone did, it was game on, challenge accepted. Today, we use the phrase to describe someone who's angry or resentful, ready to argue at the slightest provocation. Lastly, have you ever felt under the weather? You're not alone. This phrase comes from sailors in the 19th century. When a sailor was feeling unwell, they'd be sent below deck to escape the harsh weather above. Being sheltered from the storm while recovering led to the phrase we use today to describe feeling sick or unwell. It's a reminder that sometimes a bit of rest away from life's storms is just what the doctor ordered. Language is a living, evolving thing, and these phrases are little time capsules that connect us to the past. They remind us of how people used to live, work, and even fight. So the next time you hear one of these expressions, you know a little bit more about where it comes from, and maybe, just maybe, it will give you a little appreciation for the words we use every day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.